Welcome to What People Miss. This podcast is your sacred space for your softness, your pleasure, your joy. You deserve a sacred home to practice, pause, and self nurturing as a radical act, and to remember that you're allowed to choose joy and pleasure even in seasons of rage, transition, and grief. Listen for what you've been missing between the feelings and emotions that you're dismissing. Get ready to take notes. And welcome back, my guest, Logina Mustafa. Hello.
Hello. Glad to be back. Excited to continue the conversation.
Me too. So you were saying something like you once had an experience where during an orgasm, you also had an affirmation come up. And before you share your story, I want to say, like, one of the tantric meditations I was taught was to basically do that, right? Is to reconnect with your body in a way that it speaks to you, right? And it gives you wisdom. And so you can solo self pleasure and have this experience, but listen to the beauty of the magnification of this in union. So, with that, please share, Logina.
Beautiful introduction. Um, and yeah, I did not even know that was part of the context. I'm excited to learn more about that as well. But so I earlier this year, I was getting really into this concept of the concept of neurodecolonization and where that went hand in hand with like the neuroscience of magic. I was seeing all of these like interconnections, and I spontaneously and also was thinking a lot about erotic power. And so I had a private gathering with some beloved folks of the community that I'm a part of, um, and put together a PowerPoint presentation I titled The Erotics of Liberating Manifestation. So I kind of, because I think it's really powerful to work. Like, I bring a lot of my background in the plant medicine space to my relationship with sexuality, because these are altered states of consciousness. And for example, like there's this concept of preparation and integration from psychedelic use. And there's also looking at the context of set, so your mindset, setting your emotional and physical environment, support what's happening relationally in that moment and outside of the container, source, which you're like the source of medicine you're working with, the relationships you're navigating, your motivation and skill, your experiences, the education and knowledge you're bringing to what you're navigating. So, in that, I said I wanted to do an experiment where I had the preparation before a shared intimate experience of aligning our mindset and intentions, and then, I talked through in this PowerPoint presentation the connection points between erotic power, the and connecting to an energy that we can use to shift into the world we want to live in, and what does it mean to bring forward like liberating heavenly frequencies, as and then I also talked about how we can start to undo the internalization of oppression, not just in our ideas and beliefs, but in our nervous systems. Um, and so, yeah, I went through these different steps, and then the shared intention and focusing on what we wanted collectively of prosperity and abundance, and led us through a meditation that took these principles of the neuroscience of magic, which are um, being really clear about what you want, connecting to the emotion around it, being and connecting with the frequency of what that is and how you feel about it, and releasing more so the how will I get there. And so, and I led us through that on every level, including like for our community, for the world, in our own lives. Um, as the opening container, we all meditated together. We wrote down our intentions. We burned them in a fire. And then I had a really beautiful experience of shared intimacy. And I did have I did experience an orgasm where I had the thought enter my mind, love yourselves and each other back into heaven was the thought that kept entering my mind. And every time it came into my mind, I would orgasm harder and more intensely. And I was like crying and I was like experiencing these orgasms. And it's kind of known in group intimate experiences to kind of have a notepad and a pen next to me because I can have a lot of downloads. Like,
Yeah. That is just proof that sexual power is creative power, right? It comes straight from the portal between worlds, straight into your mind, and then you got to write it down. I know.
yes, yes. And it really was such a powerful continuation of um, different, I had this psychedelic experience that was all around like heaven and hell or states of being on earth and what it means to orient in particular ways. So it's a common thread. And the people that I was with, I had known for years. And there was a lot of, so, coming back to this is deeply healing energy. This is the space where we are like our mammal selves and our spiritual selves convene. And just at the degree of safety I felt that even allowed that experience to happen, I think is really critical because I was able to surrender to that level where I had an experience akin to an experience with ayahuasca. It was through sexuality. And then there's also the orgasm I had while I was on ayahuasca, which is another story. But yeah. Um,
So, you mentioned something when we were not recording. I don't know if you would, and the reason why I want to bring this into the conversation is because there's a misunderstanding about female ejaculation, right? Like, we can be juicy, but we don't ejaculate, and actually, there's many forms of female ejaculation when you're in the spiritual context, right? And when you can connect to your body that deeply and with others, with another body or more bodies at the same time. So, one key element you left out was the type
yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, yes, there was a very strong um, experience of ejaculation every time of female ejaculation. Even I'm like, oh, squirting doesn't feel like the appropriate word to use in this scenario. But
It's
yeah,
not.
it happened more and more intensely also as the orgasms escalated with this kind of like mantra.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of um, a long journey around that. I also just realized this idea of like being tight like I'm like, oh, the clit needs to actually engorge with blood over time, and that's what actually creates a sensation of tightness, not this anxiety that I'm not tight enough, so I'm squeezing down. um, and I just realized that, and I'm in shock because I'm doing sex education for so long. But yes, so I was
Thank you
fully.
for Thank you for bringing that up because, well, let's before we get into that, the mechanics of tightness, let's talk about the physiology of the clitoris, right? It's not just a little bean, as some people call it. There's more to the body. It has oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So there we go. But it
Yes,
even
oh,
goes further back
yes,
to
yes.
the U spot, and the C spot, obviously. So the C spot and the U spot are further up in the vaginal canal, and the C spot or the cervical spot, right, would be the ultimate orgasm. And to be able to tap that doesn't necessarily require length, right? It can just be energetic, depending on the person's spiritual connection with you. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, even you can think about the anatomy of a penis. You don't the it doesn't have to be long to hit the to hit the cervix. It just has to be um, connected and powerful, which kind of segues into the tightness thing, right? Because as the full body or the full legs of the clitoris get engorged, you grip what's there, you know?
Mhm.
And, you know, for women of an advanced age who may have had more than 1 or 2 children, the same is true, right? It's not about your, vaginal canal being so out of shape. It's more about, uh, the insensitivity, right? Maybe the clitoris, the full body of your clitoris is numb, or you're not familiar with how to stimulate it so that you get full sensation. And but that's true for any age. It's not even an age thing, you know?
Mm. Yes, and it's so important to talk about this. I think that like the when I think about the internalized kind of like slut shaming that that so many of us encounter, right? The idea of being like loose or like like all these ways of kind of putting down um, the empowerment of female-bodied people through sexuality, and being like, here's the science and here's the experience of it, as a way to um, like disprove that. And I think that it's interesting, having these conversations with partners who are men, because I think sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings if they like don't know that this thing is true, and then I'm like, what am I doing, or like it's been interesting. I'm like, wow, I talk about this all the time, but then when it comes to my interpersonal relationships, there's some challenge, and I've been pushing myself to have more of the conversations, like getting off of this escalator, and kind of realize, I'm like, this is not, we're not properly taught about all these different aspects of being. I did just get to meet the OMGS folks at a conference, which was cool. Like that's for folks listening. That's it's education around female anatomy and pleasure. That's very much like hands-on and instructional. But yeah, I think how can we have greater compassion for ourselves and each other because there's such a intentional lack of education around this. So yeah, just thank you for raising awareness. And for me, I had to be like release, maybe judging myself around it, because I was like, oh, am I a good feminist if I didn't even know this, or if I was perpetuating this? And then I was like, whoa, 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 that's not the way, So I think just opening the stigmatized conversation is key. Yeah, and then we can like understand what's happening in our bodies. It's a huge part of bodily autonomy, and I think to be honest with you, I just learned about the U spa through you. I didn't
Oh,
know it.
okay.
Yeah,
Like, who?
I
There's a
was like,
P
well,
spot and E spot. It's on different sides of the vagina and the canal. Yeah. Um, so e for me, I mean, I'm just gonna say, I thought that, it's practical, right? You tell an experience, and then I can share the science of it, and so that people can hear us talk about sexuality and sexual experiences the same way we talk about, a cafe latte or a matcha, you know, because the knowledge should be that normalized. We should be aware of the times of month that we want to have sex more and prepare for that. If schedule with your partner or partner of choice, for what your requirements are at different parts of your sexual cycle during a month or during the year. Sometimes you're less juicy, but you require the touch of someone who can bring that rise out of you, and that can be a physical thing, that can be a spiritual thing, but mostly a it's a choice. You want to make your pleasure your priority, And it's just like, you should get a massage every week, you know? You should go to the doctor. You need to go to the gym. You need to have sex. It's good for your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. You'll live longer. You'll think clearer.
Mm. Yes, yes. What's coming up for me as well is there was a time, like so a year ago, I left New York for some time to go on a nomadic journey, and and the sex I was having radically shifted because I went from like regular experiences and community and with different folks to um, kind of traveling, having occasional like experiences with people I didn't know as well. And and then I came back, and it was I immediately was like, like this is so has become such an important part of my life in terms of co-regulation, and like it just a really critical part of my like well-being on different levels that I hadn't expected. Um, and I am very protective of that now in different ways, like this concept of pleasure activism, or like like just this, I'm like, this is not just hedonism, this is like deeply nourishing and nurturing. And I think that yeah, the more we can bring like the science around that forward, the better, because this is a core drive in being human. And so like, and I find it helpful to start to question. I'm like, if this is a part of my well-being, um, and like this is healing for me in different ways, etc., like who would benefit from this practice and its impact? And so I think, yeah, the mission statement of queering existentialism is co-creating containers for the exchange of liberating ideas and cultivating communal secure attachment. um, because yeah, and I think living in an environment where it is more of the norm, um, to be sex positive or even to be sex neutral is a concept that's come up lately as well. Where, as you're saying, like this isn't, we're not pedestalizing this, and we're not deeming this, we're removing the morality around it, and we're treating it as it is, because it's really the context that gives it meaning, I think, versus the inherent act or practice itself. And I think that also looking at these other parallels, like for me, I do find benefit in looking at, different experiences with plant medicine, where I'm like, that I can um, have a fun, silly day at the beach on mushrooms, and I can also have this ceremonial experience where I'm doing deep ancestral work and processing deep traumas, and um, they're all important. They're all an important part of my ecosystem and how I regulate and care for myself and experience pleasure and process somatically and release and like maintain um, my sense of self. And I think that there's this constant kind of pressure to add this as for like the beliefs of like, oh, if you, especially in non-monogamy, like I think I've recently been dating someone who's newer to non-monogamy and explaining like, and there's that belief of like, if you have better sex with someone else, you might leave me. What does better sex even mean? Or like, if sex is part of a relationship, it's inherently more threatening or more impact, like more of a threat to, it's this idea of scarcity. And I think that I'm living in a state of abundance around it and experiencing how possible that is. And when we move and then also acknowledging like, I am considered like being a female bodied person, being someone who might get a lot of attention in different ways. Like I also relate to sexuality differently. And that's something I've been grappling with as well. Like that, and but also it's the energetics. I've identified publicly as a vibe sexual before, and realizing I've gone a lot less attached to physical appearance or all these other things. And I've realized like there's something around like spirituality and energetics that are really important in order for me to feel that attraction and that exchange, and what it means to be a sacred slut. Because I think that um, in my attempt to rebel against oppression and conservatism, I was immersed in hookup culture, exposing myself to all types of like treatment and energies, and that wasn't freedom either. And that's something else I've been thinking about, the intentionality of that energetic exchange.
Yeah. And intentionality matters, I believe, more than morality. And what is morality? It's subjective, really, isn't it? Depending on your culture. And even in the United States, there's so many subcultures. Like, is there a culture? I really, and as I say that, right, that's my toggle, right? I swing between, wait, I have to be a certain way because I'm a mom and, this, that, and the other. And I really should have this. But then the real me is like, hmm, actually, sometimes sex is a gift, right? Sometimes it's a require like I get messages, right, that I have to give a gift, right? And it's healing for some people and for us in that moment. And sometimes it's something for me, right? It's always for me any way you look at it, whether or not it's something that I want to give or something I want to receive. And there's always reciprocity. You can't get around that, especially when you have intentionality. And so I'm hearing that you've grown more from the the randomness of what happens in the mass culture to specifically to what Logina wants.
Yes. And back. Yeah, I think that's really evident and in my experiences, and right, this belief that I I deserve to relate in the ways that I want to relate. It's possible. I'm worthy of it. Um, undoing these like childhood stories around like striving to working through different attachment issues, or this idea of like I didn't get the love and care that I deserved because I wasn't worthy of it, and therefore I still have control over the situation because if it's my fault, then I can change it. And releasing that and seeing, different people in my life as people, not these roles of mother or father, realizing that as well, there's a connection point between like expectations around like a single like parental figure and expectations around a single partner when we're meant to be in community and we're meant to like be in the village and be communal creatures where our needs are met in multifaceted ways. um, yeah, and then I think I was realizing like my deep beliefs around myself or like my fear of seeing or admitting what I want is actually what's coming into my life over and over in cycles. And until I address that or shift it, it's going to continue. So what's the lesson? And I think yeah, that's been something I didn't expect along the way, and usually comes up during like different types of intentional altered state experiences. But I'll be like, oh, there's another door behind here, and I'm so afraid to look at it. And I also add, I had my favorite high school teacher. She once looked at me and said, I see something in you I see in a lot of young women. You'd rather believe that if you fully did your best you would succeed than risk failure. um, and I think about that often because um, realizing that yeah, I don't have to be perfect, and that the iterative process is part of the journey, and that it's that like me believing that it's possible actually makes it possible, um, and applying that over and over, and no one else can do that part for me. I think has been a big lesson.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to you talk about what you're experiencing, what you're doing, what the communities you're creating, and the intersection with psychedelics, would you say that you see yourself long term as developing into a medicine woman?
Hmm. Um, I'm in the process of applying for like an integration, psychedelic integration training. I think it's really important to, like, as someone who does work in this space, to have that additional context. I would say I've grappled so much with wanting to provide, to show up directly with folks, and then to also bring in this level of the communal secure attachment piece, or like the community piece. I think that I'm really interested in like who isn't even here aware of these practices, or who's curious and doesn't know where to take the first step, or like how do we make it accessible and culturally competent, and like extend a hand, and like I think the public health lens, which goes hand, because also I want to bring up social prescribing as a concept, which is literally like a community group, where you're integrating something creative, or like you're coming around, you're connecting with people as a therapeutic intervention, and like especially around taboo pathways to healing. I think it's unusual to see someone from my background publicly talking about these things, and it comes with a cost, and it comes with risk, and I'm so grateful to have the people in my life that I do, because it makes it possible to even be perceived in that way. And I know that maybe perhaps there'll be a time in my life where I shift more into that space of like directly holding space, but I think I've been in this other realm, because a lot of, I look, when I started doing work in graduate school around looking at equity and access to psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, and also looking at what was going on in my family around different, um, mental illnesses and challenges of that sort, I was like, well, you're not even going to be here seeking this out, and if the work that I'm doing doesn't eventually, if the work that I'm doing isn't impacting the communities that I come from and the people that I come from, um, what's the point? Like that's how it kind of feels in my experience. But I know there's a whole new world that I'm still exploring and experiencing around, um, like different communities in Egypt, and getting involved with like kind of integrating these different parts of my life that have been schismed. But I think that also ties back into the ancestral practices, right? And learning more about like Blue Lotus and its role, and um, like different rituals and things of that nature. So thank you for asking. That's kind of where I see that.
But that's good. I mean, I think, at this point, I'm hearing you say that you're more concerned with cultivating community and getting people to understand what is secure attachment and community at this point.
I think that is a critical part of integration, and making the shifts, like the lessons and realizations that come up, like actually transforming our lives. Is It can be really isolating when you are growing and expanding in different ways, and then the people around you are not necessarily um, resonating in the same way. And I've been in that position where I've had to choose between my own like growth and expansion and authenticity and connection and belonging, when I looked around and I didn't have, the relationships in my life were more superficial, or um, just of a different frequency. And so I think creating that space, like, okay, here I am, I've transformed in these ways, where will I go? Because I am really, right, like I'm so impacted by having friendships and relationships in my life where people have shared values, or cultivating similar practices, and where I can feel not only like in our friendship, like right, like that just really enriches the journey, and I learn and I can connect through that, and it feels deeply rewarding. So if I can contribute to cultivating a place for people to land in the ways that can um, expand their own journeys and our own collective journeys together, that feels resonant at this time. Yeah.
And it's necessary, right? Because that was part of my gap. Like I had to hunt and hunt and hunt to finally find the community where we met. But what if there was a world where you can come right over here, if you're sick of this, come and find out explore what it looks like if you were to allow yourself to experience your queerness, if you were to allow yourself to um, just do something different. It doesn't even have to be the opposite of what you've ever been doing. There's a safe space for that. So, where is that space that they can find you?
Um,
This.
yes. Thank you for asking. So I have a queering existentialism community on violet.com, where I'm also head of community. It's a digitally secure platform, community-centered social network that also uses, that will also recommend communities to people and people to communities with around a variety of topics and interests and whatnot. So that's why I've decided to also have my community be in that space. And so you can connect with other members, see events, see different writings and presentations. And yeah, I'm excited to continue to nurture and grow that space because I think I want it to be easier for people. Than the experience that I had. I want it to be more accessible, and I want to transmute that into creating the spaces that, I wish existed and that were there to hold me along the way. So I'd love to welcome folks onto that space. And yeah, it's violet with two T's.com.
Yes. And it's a beautiful community. I'm just getting acquainted. So, um, and is there anything more you want to share about your platform?
Um, sure. I I want to share that there are other communities on there as well, spanning a variety of topics, including the ones that we've talked about today. Because there is, when we look at like who doesn't, which systems might not want us to find community in these ways or find liberation in these ways. There's a lot of censorship and on kind of mainstream platforms around this word algorithmic suppression, surveillance, and with Violet has our servers in the Netherlands, and where we are not subjected to that approach. And so I think I want to talk also about the concept of hyperhumanism, which looks at how technology can support human flourishing, and also as an alternative to transhumanism. My dear friend Carl Hayden Smith has coined this framework, and Violet really reflects that ethos of technology can actually support us in finding connection and connecting with other folks and carving out space and time for embodiment. It doesn't have to be an either or. There can be a symbiotic way to move forward, and I think that is really critical at this time and at this junction of polycrisis, as they call it. Embodiment practices, embracing what makes us truly human, which includes connection with ourselves and each other through spirituality, through embodiment, through erotic power. And I think that, the world that we want to live in, we can co-create it, and it can start on individual level and beyond. And that gives me a lot of my work also talks about existential healing and existential liberation. So what does that look like for us to believe and hold that forward, and what is the role of technology or our digital spaces, our environments that we're using to connect? What values are they encouraging us to cultivate? How are they, are we creating spaces of kindness and unity and relationality and peace at this time where we're constantly being, our attention is being hijacked to do the opposite? How do we redirect our attention and have tools that are synergistic with that and spaces that support that? So that's why I'm really passionate about this platform. And also, my work kind of focuses on the taboo pathways to healing that includes like AI technology, sexuality, relationality, and plant medicine. Because I look forward to continuing to work together and reflect and scheme across these different topics, because it gives me a lot of energy and a lot of hope. And I'm so grateful that I've for the different privileges in my life that even make it possible to be having this conversation with you right now. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. I mean, all the time people are saying AI is going to replace humans and there's a fear around it. But just like everything else we've talked about in this conversation, what if you could create a world where AI is supporting what you want and desire most, right? Which is human connection. And and what if all the taboo things that we've been told are bad for us were exactly what we're missing, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
The powerful questions.
So, thank you so much for this beautiful series and conversation. And yeah, can't wait to dive deeper and deeper and deeper into this. And for those of you who are viewing and listening, thank you for listening to What People Miss. What did you learn today? How will you choose differently? If this episode opened your mind and you're ready to turn your life around, go to my website, cordeliagaffar.com, and schedule your wellness consultation. But in the meantime, remember to choose joy and pleasure. And until next week, be free.